Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's amazing live session. We are going to talk about how to use AI Assistant to create original teaching materials. Our guest today is Beatrice Harvey, and a bit more about her later. Thank you all for joining us. I hope today's session is going to be really useful because we talk a lot about how to create materials, how important it is to create materials, but what are the practical applications of our AI Assistant, and what are the prompts that you should use and how to make them work for you. This is your regular host, Polly Minglovsky. Hi, really happy to see you all here. If you have any questions throughout today's session, don't hesitate to write them in the comment section and will make sure to answer them promptly. Let me tell you first a little bit about what Amazy.uk is if you're new here and if you haven't heard about it before. Amazy.uk is an online digital platform for modern educators. It's a workspace where you can find thousands of ready-to-use, customizable, and interactive materials for your lessons. You can share them with your students, you can edit them, you can easily check homework because there are a lot of self-checking exercises, and you can also create your own materials using our fantastic AI assistant and 16 interactive tools. You can scan the QR code in the top left corner to go on Amazy.uk or just simply type in Amazy.uk in your browser. All right, now let me tell you a few words about today's guest, Beatrice Harvey. She is an educational professional with more than 20 years of experience, and she has delivered training to educators worldwide and designed innovative curricula. And recently, she has been working in international education research, and she is also now implementing AI into designing this educational curricula, and also she is helping teachers understand how to use AI effectively. Let's welcome Beatrice. Hi!
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm really good, thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for coming. I'm really looking forward to this conversation today because, I hear a lot of, teachers are trying to use AI and, but have problems with it. And the problems are that the results that they get is not something that you expect to get from the AI. So today we're going to address how to design correct prompts, how to work with the outputs, and how to tweak it all, to get what you expect and what you want from the assistant or from, different AI models. First of all, can you tell me a little bit, why did you start working with this? Why did you get into working with AI, and, why do you help teachers work with it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, a few years ago, I was working in the world where AI came out, and we were all thinking about the hype about it, and it was all very exciting, and not as good as it is today. But and what I found when I was talking to teachers and working with teachers was there were a lot of questions and not many answers. And one thing I've found is I'm naturally very experimental and I love kind of playing around with things and working things out for myself. But a busy teacher, however much they love to do it, it can be really tricky to kind of balance that. And I think with the world of AI, there's a huge part where you need to learn how to do it. But you also, the bigger part is really kind of having the tools to be able to practice it and kind of refine it. So that's kind of where I've been going recently with my work. And yeah, helping teachers really have access to what they need.
Yeah. A lot of problems that people also have with AI is not only that they get the results that they don't like, but also that it feels inauthentic. When you generate it with AI, there are a lot of AI-isms, the same kind of cliche
Mm.
phrasing and wording that it uses. And then is it really, good for education? Is it something that our students will really benefit from? Or a lot of people are a bit wary of using it because of that, because it feels inauthentic and it feels fake.
Yeah, I think from a teacher's perspective, it's a bit different from a student's perspective, particularly if a student is trying to learn to do something. You have to do the hard work to be able to learn. You can't use AI. You can use it as a tool. I think for teachers, I think the most important thing is that it's going to be something that can help you. And yes, it can come across as inauthentic, But I think it's
Mhm.
really harnessing your own expertise as a teacher, which is the part that makes it really powerful. And I think if we think in context, so we are the masters of our own context in the classroom, for example,
Mhm.
AI, we need to reframe AI as a kind of tool to help us efficiently and effectively, create resources or whatever it is, the task at hand. But we always need to have the agency. And I think that's a really important area for teachers to have.
Okay, and I guess today we will try to figure out how to get that agency. Okay, if you're watching us live, please write in the comments what problems do you have with using AI now? Or maybe share your experience in general. Have you tried creating exercises, lessons, or courses using AI assistants or AI models? And if you've had any problems, what they were, and if there were any particular problems, maybe we will try to help you with that. Okay, so I'll keep it there for a while. Now, there are a few things that we decided to talk about today. The first one was, what are the key factors for effective original outputs? And I guess, can you tell me a bit what is an input, what is an output? Because this lingo,
Yeah.
maybe not everybody knows what it is.
Absolutely. So the input is essentially what we prompt, what we tell the AI system to do for us. Okay. And so that would be the input. You can have many types of input as well. So you might give it instructions, a bit like how we would give our students instructions, but it's quite different. And we'll talk about that, I think, in a bit.
Yeah.
But you can also give it data.
Mhm.
Obviously, there's big question marks over that, but you can upload files and content, even images, even audio, and it can be used as a source of data for the AI to be able to follow your instructions and use that as information. So that's the input aspect. And then
Mhm.
the output is obviously what the AI generates. So we are talking only about generative AI here. I'm not talking about anything else. So that would be predominantly text or images it could create for us. And that's anything. So the real skill is we don't have control over building an AI. We're not going to build like large language models, and we're not going to do any of that. Those are the companies that have done that. Our control is how we instruct it or prompt it. It's the prompting is the key term here, in
Mhm.
order for it to give us the output that we want and what we need.
Yeah.
And that's where it is. Yeah.
Okay, and then what's the difference between input and prompt, if there is any?
So input, I mean, yeah, so you've got the prompting. So you might input into the AI a prompt, you might give it a prompt, but as I said, you've got potentially you might put into the AI some data like a PDF. Maybe you've written a lesson plan 10 years ago,
Yeah.
but you need it updated, for example. That could
Yeah.
also go into the AI.
Okay. Okay. So prompt would be something like an instruction that you give AI,
Yeah,
and it can also be followed by some data that
yeah,
you feed into it, and then the output is what AI generates for
yeah,
you.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. So then, moving on to the question: what are the factors for effective original outputs? If you need me to show any slide, tell me.
Yeah, absolutely. I might dip into the ACEs framework in a moment, but I
Yeah.
think just in the most simplistic sense, I think just like when we were all learning to be teachers, we had to learn that giving clear instructions was really critical for our students' ability to succeed, right? Same principle. We need clear, structured prompting in order for any AI to produce something that might be what we want it to. But then there's another layer there, which is, as I mentioned earlier, it's a bit about context. So it's really important that we layer in our knowledge as teachers, both contextually, but also through our work experience and our own education as teachers and our own training, to be able to have this ability to produce something, have an output that works for us. But also, it's a ongoing process. It's never perfect. Immediately, you
Yeah.
have to get to that point. So it's this constant idea of editing that you need to do as you kind of develop your prompting skills. So I'd say those are the three main things for effective prompting.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Should we move on to this?
Yeah. So I've developed this framework. There are so many prompting frameworks out there. But this one's very, very specific to language education for teachers. It goes through, first of all, we've got the aces. I call it the aces. I think of it a bit like pocket aces. You know, if you play cards,
Yeah.
so you have like, it's like your trick. It's like your
Okay.
trick. So the first one is aims. And this is really important. Whenever you're talking to or typing in a AI and giving it a prompt, you need to make sure that you're defining your learning goals. This is the same principle of teaching anyway.
Yeah.
So we're already doing it.
Okay.
But we just need to learn how to do it with an AI, which is just a simple tweak. It's not that hard. Then there's that context. So that's what I was talking about in terms of like the teacher's expertise. So this is where you would give within a prompt context. So it's B1 students, for example,
Okay.
they're teenagers and they really enjoy creative activities or something, as much
Okay.
context as you can give. Then the expectations is really important. So this gives the parameters around what the AI is going to build. So you're giving it kind of almost the boundaries. Again, just like teaching, we give parameters around some types of lessons that we have with our students. You know,
Mhm.
we want you to focus on the present perfect, but we don't want you to focus on the present perfect continuous yet. That kind of
Mhm.
idea. And we can look at an example later.
Mhm.
And then finally is sources. So this is what I was talking about in terms of like uploading anything that might be relevant to the task at hand, the output that you're aiming for. AIs really do well if you give them an example.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so if you can give them an example of something or even just describe an example. So if I was creating a lesson, for example, on Amazy, I might describe that I wanted a gap fill specifically.
Yeah.
And that's a really concrete example that Amazy's AI can actually use and then generate for you.
That's
So
true.
yeah,
I've
yeah,
also heard that of what I've used as well is assigning a role to AI. As this is probably something that, like the first thing I will usually do before moving on to the
yeah.
ACEs thing. I would say you are an experienced teacher with like 20 years and with these qualifications and these certifications, and you have done this, this, and this, and this, sort of.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it depends what you're trying to do. So, if you're trying to kind of create a lesson plan, it's not necessary always to have the role kind of inserted. If you're
Yeah.
creating an AI assistant or an agent, then absolutely, roles are absolutely crucial. But if it's something a little bit smaller, then I would say, you know, you can get around it because of you're having this conversation with the AI and it
Yeah.
remembers and it kind of understands that, but always be explicit. So if you're not sure, yes, say you're a teacher for 20 years and you want it to behave like that.
Okay. We have with us today uh, Darshani Sivakumar. I'm sorry if I mispronounce it. Hi, thank you for joining us today. We actually asked a question earlier, and if you want, you can share your ideas, what problems you have with using AI, if you've tried using AI to create lessons, courses, or exercises, and what problems you faced by doing this. Okay, back to the slide we have on the left, eco.
Yes. So
What is eco? Why do we need to think about it?
yeah, so echo is really important because okay, so we obviously don't know exactly where we're going with AI. I mean, none of the experts do. It's an interesting journey that we're going on. However, some really big organizations have come up with some good ideas on how we can, as a community, kind of not police ourselves, that's too strong, but kind of encourage ourselves to think about, you know, the context and what we're doing with AI in a careful and a conscious way.
Yeah.
So the Echo I developed because it's aligned with the UNESCO AI framework for teachers and students, both of them.
Hmm.
But whilst the UNESCO framework is fantastic, it is quite big and the busy teacher cannot access it, right? So the Echo is like a really simple tool to use whenever you're using AI. So the first one is obviously ethical considerations. And I'm sure as teachers who are joining today and using Amazee, we've all thought about this already. There's been questions been asked for a couple of years now about ethical considerations. So we just need to make sure that we're being careful with bias. We need to be careful that we're not infringing any copyright, sharing data that we shouldn't, infringing privacy rights, and all those sorts of things. So it's just having that in your mind. So while you're writing a prompt, whilst you're uploading something for it to look at as well, are we having our ethical considerations in place?
Mm-hmm.
The next one is continuous development, and I've kind of touched on this already. So you're never going to make the best prompt the first time. You need to keep going. You need to keep developing. And also AI is also developing very quickly as well. And the tools are getting better all the time. I think Amazee, I think when we first spoke and I first found out about you, it was at this stage, and now it's already at this stage, and that's happened really quickly. And I think this continuous development and this continuous learning journey is something that we want our students to do, but it's also something that we need to be doing as teachers now as well. And the human collaboration is, for me, possibly the most important one. I don't think we can ever really truly work effectively in isolation with just an AI. I don't think it works. And having the human collaboration all the way through, for example, being a part of an Amazee community where you get to post lessons and use each other's lessons and all of that, and joining sessions like this is really important, because it's going to shape the way that we can use AI in the future. And it also brings up really great questions that we can all share and learn from together. And it's that kind of sense of communities of practice. If anyone's familiar with that, that's where we have a goal, which is to learn together. And we kind of navigate through that, whether it's formally or informally. And then ongoing. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, can I pause you for a second? Just wanted to say that you can actually, like if you're watching us now or in recording, scan this QR code and you will be taken to an Amazee lesson with everything that we're going to talk about today, all examples of prompts, all examples of, all the slides that we are going to show, and all the explanations of how this all works. Another thing is, if you go to Amazee community and actually type in AI prompts or prompt for teaching, there are a few lessons shared by our users, some of the community members, with prompts that they have developed for creating lessons, and we have a few of those as well created by the community. This is what you were talking about, the human collaboration, because it's something that I really find exciting, how the community just shares. People want to collaborate on things and they want to share their findings and what works for them, what doesn't work for them. It's incredible that this is happening.
Yeah. I think also AI companies such as ChatGPT are kind of they are also doing this, which I think is really interesting, because of it could have been their prerogative to kind of slow that down, but I think everyone's realized, well, if we're going to do this, we've got to do it together. So yeah.
And we also have an answer from our viewer. An artist and baker turned into a trainer, coach, and TEDx speaker. Wow. That's an interesting journey. And sometimes I face too much of details comes up, and I find it difficult to identify the points. So this is the problem. Too much information in the output of AI. So I guess you have to tweak what exactly you ask it to do for you, probably.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think it's those parameters. I think it's those expectations that can really help kind of tweak that. I also think this kind of critical eye we always need to have whenever we're using AI is a really good way of kind of building that knowledge and understanding as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's good you're identifying with it. I think that's the key. Like you've started, you're like, right, this is the problem. So maybe work on the expectations, and that might help.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, shall we put all of this into action then?
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Right.
Right. So let's see.
Right. Yes. You can see this. So I have put in a general prompt here. I'm just going to hit send. So I've asked it to create a 45-minute lesson materials for B1 level teens about the past simple continuous. And I like storytelling. It's one of my favorite kind of areas of teaching. So I've asked for a warm up and a main task and some control practice. So Amazing's then generated this for me, which is fantastic. So I've got my warm up. I've also got my control practice, and yeah, and then I've got my main task. Now, what I would do then is I haven't obviously read this in detail, so I would do that first.
Yeah.
And then I pop that into, oh no, hang on. Yeah,
Yeah.
pop that into there. And then I want to, let's say we're going to look at, for example, the control practice. All right, so it's saying provide sentences with gap fills that require either the past simple or past continuous. Okay,
So what we can do, yeah, we can see the output that it gives you the teacher instructions without the actual exercises. So here we have a good example of how the output is not exactly what you expect it to be. So what we can do is to continue talking to it. Because one thing with Amazing AI Assistant is that the conversation you're having with it within one lesson is a continuous conversation. It's not like every input you make is not a new input. It continues what you discussed. So you can ask it to turn this into actual exercises. You can turn this into, you can give examples. You can ask it to provide actual sentences for this kind of practice, which you then turn into interactive materials.
right, let's see if it does it. So I've tweaked it, if you see what I mean. So I'm having a, yeah, as you say, I'm having this conversation.
Okay, and it created one sentence for the controlled practice. So I think, again, here we can keep tweaking it and we can ask it to write 10 sentences for the controlled practice.
Yeah, absolutely. Shall I do that now?
Yeah, let's do that.
There we go.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so let's. Can you show where the add to the lesson button is? Yes, so you don't have to like copy it manually or anything. There is just a button to add it to the lesson. You can choose where you're going to add it to the lesson. So let's add it to after the controlled practice part.
I've done it in the wrong place.
Oh, no, it doesn't matter then. You can move it up. Just drag it. Grab the.
Oh, where's it gone? It's because I'm doing it live. It's gone to the top.
Yeah, but you can drag and drop it. So you can drag it to the controlled practice part.
There it is.
Okay, let's highlight it, the text. And let's choose text block there.
And then gap fill.
Yeah, text block. And then if you scroll a bit down, yeah, you can choose, let's choose free input gaps. So this is where the students will be able to write the answer themselves. So now you can highlight was cooking, for example, and you can click gap. And so the student will have to write was cooking. So I guess you will also need to add cook, the verb after in brackets. No, this will be an alternative option, but here you will need to write in brackets cook like this. Yeah, and this is also something you can ask AI to do. Yeah, you can use the sentences and you can say, hey, after every past continuous or past simple verb, can you add this same verb in brackets? And it will do this for you, like I've done this before. So yes, it sometimes takes some time for you to get exactly what you want, but this is a conversation you're having with AI because it doesn't know exactly what you want. So you have to be very specific. If you don't like the output that you get, you have to be very specific and you have to just keep telling it what you need. Yeah, like this. Let's click student view just to see what it looks like. Yeah, this one. Okay, yeah, now you have to type the answer here. Was cooking.
The bit that I really liked about this is when I did like a gap fill but with choices to practice this. I really enjoyed that element of it because I managed to get it to a point where it was doing the brackets for me, but I could give it the wrong answer as well.
Yeah. So there are several types of gaps on Amazee actually, and I think we have a few videos on our YouTube channel about it. Just type in amazing.uk on YouTube. You will see a lot of tutorials that we have. So this one, yeah, you need to write something in this
Oh,
one. Just
okay.
yeah, if maybe watched. Yeah, check. Yeah,
Yay!
well done.
All right, I'm so pleased.
Yeah, so what we chose was three input gaps, which is where a student will have to write the answer that you have in it, and you can give it a few alternatives. So that is to accommodate contractions, basically, or spelling variations, or even possible alternative options for the answer. But the ones you were talking about, the one you were talking about was just gaps. So gaps is where there is an option that is correct, and you have to manually give it wrong options. So that's a bit more typing. But the one that I like myself most is matching gaps, and this is where you just choose a word, send it to gaps, and then you choose another word and send it. And so the student, when they click on the gap, they will see all the words you sent there to this pool of words, and it basically takes like 3 seconds to create this exercise, and I use it for vocabulary. Basically, you can't use it for grammar. I don't think you can, but for vocabulary, it's like you have 10 words and you have to choose them for each sentence.
Yeah, fantastic. It's really good. I think I've done a lesson on storytelling on Amazing already, so I think that's already posted.
Yeah, actually, if you just go, can you show? You can go to drafts and the community, and then you could just show where it is.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to
The
community.
Yeah, and if instead of popular this week on the right, you have to choose recent. And here it is, storytelling, the second one.
Yep, so that's there. And then there's the prompt writing lesson. So all these slides and things are all in here, and a bit more actually as well. So that's good.
Yeah. Okay. I think we had this one more example, right? So we were talking about what we just showed you. You can see this example in the lesson that Beatrice published on Amazy, but let me remove this. Yeah. So this is an Amazy prompt and the general prompt. Can you tell me a little bit about the difference between the Amazy and general prompt? Like what would be the difference?
Yeah, so this is a great example because if we know what Amazy can do and all of the different tools that it has available to us as teachers, what you can do is you can be quite prescriptive. So this actually the Amazy prompt probably isn't perfect yet, but it's an example of what you can do. So you've got use a drag and drop, matching pairs, multiple choice, etc. You've got those options that are built in. And I've just kind of listed some of the features that you could use within a prompt to kind of get to that part where it fits better. And I think this is a really good tool because as one of the people just said, sometimes there's just too much detail.
Yeah.
And that can be really confusing. And actually, by being quite prescriptive in this sense, it then allows your brain a bit freed up to have that kind of teacher agency, which is what we need to actually critically reflect on the pedagogical aspect at hand, the bit that, right, are the students going to learn this? That's what we need to be doing because that's what our jobs are, to make sure that they're learning. So it just kind of frees it up.
Well, and from a personal perspective, what I can say is that what I've noticed works more for me, and this is what you have to figure out for yourself. Like each person who's listening, you have to figure out for yourself: is it better for you to create a whole lesson plan and work from it, or step by step? Like I would usually approach it. I will have an idea of what I want to do. I will have an idea of a lesson plan of I have some materials, I have the data to give it. Like I have a text, I have a video, I have an audio in mind, and so I will ask you to create separate exercises. And then it's just easier to tweak it this way. It's easier to get exactly what you want if you take it small step by small step instead of just giving it the whole thing to do from scratch.
Yeah, I mean that's true of teaching forever. I mean, before we had computers in classrooms, or when I was teaching without computers in classrooms, my lesson plan was essentially more like a shopping list. And I'd go to a library and I'd pick a bit here and pick a bit there, and I'd work on these different bits and then pull it all together as a lesson plan. And I think that's exactly the same, really. It's just digital.
That's true. That's true. Okay. And we also have this question: how to make my AI outputs sound less AI?
Oh, okay. Good question. Very good question. So I'm no expert. I'm not a data scientist. Okay. So I wish I was in some respects. But yeah, so I think the key really is to give context. That goes back to the context one. So for example, I want you to write me a gap fill exercise that's targeting teenagers or young learners or adults or whatever in this kind of subject area. So
Yeah.
storytelling for that example. And I want it to have age relevant hooks. You can ask for things like that. It might throw out something you're like, oh, I don't think that's related or whatever. But it probably, with a bit of working, you probably would be able to do that. You can also ask AI to review for tone and
Yeah.
authenticity and classroom fit. So you can ask it to do reviews for you. So it's working like a reviewer. Again,
Hmm.
you probably need to give it some instruction and parameters and expectations of what that would look like.
Hmm.
And then, of course, there is the constant reviewing yourself and having the human at the
Yeah.
center of it, and the collaboration, and getting your peers, asking someone maybe in the staff room or on a Maisie, can
Yeah.
you have a look at this? Do you think it sounds too AI? I think for fear of saying I've created something and then someone says, oh, that's really AI, but I think we just need to remove that fear, and we just need to get feedback from each other
Yeah.
and learn together.
Yeah, and also I think we need to also accept the fact that we are going to use AI, and everybody's going to use AI, and it's
Yeah.
going to be more and more prevalent. So sometimes, if something like looks AI, we are not. Why are we trying to fool anyone? Like,
I know.
sometimes you don't need to fool anyone. Like sometimes if you need like controlled practice, just to drill something into your students.
Hmm.
Not everybody uses it, but if you want to use it, it can sound AI. What's wrong with
Yeah,
that?
absolutely. I think if there's ever any kind of concern about it, one thing that can be done is, um, which is recommended by the UN, actually, is to have like a transparency clause. So at the best bottom, you can always just put a small sentence that just says AI was used as, and then you can give the role that it was used
Yeah.
for. So idea generation, content generation, editor, proofreader, whatever, and you can just have it at the end. So you're giving that transparency, um,
Yeah.
and if
Yeah.
someone, I don't think people are going to really dislike it as long as it's factually relevant and correct. I think we'll be all right.
Can I share a few examples of how I've tried to avoid AI sounding like AI?
Yeah.
So the first thing I do is instead of asking it to generate text for me, which is where usually it sounds very much like an
Mm.
AI, I find the text that I like and ask it to adapt it. And so by giving it data, by giving it
Mhm.
actual human text. However, unfortunately, the further we progress with this, the fewer human texts we're going to find online. So
Yeah. I mean,
it's going to be a cycle of,
yeah, I think giving a role at that point is
giving a
really
role.
good. Roles are
Absolutely.
really good. I saw a prompt that was used on a ChatGPT function the other day, and it asked for the AI to be brutally honest.
Yeah.
And then it went into all of that, and it's amazing what it churned out. It was brutally honest.
Yeah.
So, I think you can give it roles and then give it ideas of tone
Yeah.
of what it needs to
True.
sound like.
And one more thing, when I ask it to create example sentences for me for vocabulary practice, for grammar practice, I always say the sentences should sound like they were overheard in the street or at a bar. And this way it gives me like actual sentences that you can hear actual people saying, you
Yeah,
know, or these should sound like the sentences should sound like they are movie quotes or they could be in a movie or a TV show.
yeah,
So this way I've got really interesting examples and because usually it just says Mary went to the park, but if you ask it to make it sound like you overheard it in the street, like overheard somebody talking saying this, or heard it in a movie or film, it will be more creative and it will give you more sort of like interesting context
yeah.
sometimes. And in several of my lessons the examples are just incredible, like they are actually
Mm.
coming from somewhere. They sound very legit.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it goes back to context and expectations, really. Giving that context is super important. And those expectations as well of I don't want it to sound corporate or business-like or overly friendly or, you know, my expectations are that it's going to be spoken about at a
Yeah.
bar,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Okay, so one more time, I will just pull it up here. If you want to see all the examples of prompts, all of the slides we've used today, just scan this QR code and you will be taken to the amazing lesson with everything there. And I think we can finish with this. Can
Yeah.
you tell us a little bit about what this is?
Yes, so I have been working very hard recently on building an AI course which is accessible to all teachers, which is all designed in bite-sized chunks. So it's a practical introduction. Okay, so it's not going to give you everything, but it's going to give you all the foundational kind of understanding and underpinnings that you need, from the ethical to this prompting framework and many, many more things. It's also got a community as well, which is really important. And it is about 6 to 8 hours. It depends how much you want to engage with it, but it's specifically been designed into bite-sized chunks. And these chunks are for the busy teacher. So you can do 5 minutes here, 20 minutes there, however long we want to do, or maybe you want to do one sit down and do 1 hour's worth in one go. It's completely designed for the busy teacher, and it's really practical and it goes straight back into the classroom. So hopefully you'll be using it almost immediately.
That's great. I think that's the idea behind it. Like you learn something and you immediately implement it.
Yes.
It's learning by doing and learning along with doing.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. And please
No,
scan
thank
the QR
you.
code and get 75% discount on the full course before the
Yes.
30th of April.
Yes.
Don't forget about that. And if you have any questions to Beatrice, of course, you can always find her on LinkedIn. Here is her LinkedIn page QR code. Too many QR codes, as always. Like I've been told that I overuse QR codes, but I love them. I think it's so convenient. Just grab your phone, scan the QR code. Yeah. If you watch this in recording, we can also watch it on a YouTube channel. So if you missed something today and if you just joined in at this point, you can watch the whole recording on our YouTube channel later, like after we finish. And thank you so much. Thank you
Oh,
for coming.
thank you.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you for coming and joining us today. And thank you, everybody who joined us today, and for you specifically.
Thank you for having me. It was really fun. Thank you so much. I hope it was helpful and insightful.
Yeah, and if you want to
Thank
learn
you.
more, definitely join Beatrice's course, and you will definitely hear more and learn more from her. Okay, thank you for coming. Bye bye.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone.
All right, so this brings us to the end of today's session. I hope you all learned something new. I hope you all put away the fear of using AI, or we have covered some of the concerns you've had about using it, and maybe solved some of the problems you've had with the results you got from the AI. The only thing you have to do is experiment and try different things, and don't be afraid to try it, but stay ethical. All right, I will see you soon with our next live session. More about it in our newsletter. And I'll see you next week again.